5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, good evening, and welcome to my Tour de Romandie preview. I'm delighted once again to be joined by Brian Smith. Brian, how are we?
Good. I'll try and keep the accent down a little bit so everybody understands, because you're quite heavy, David.
Right. You go posh and I'll go normal.
I'm not used to doing posh though.
Okay, we are looking at Romandie, and first thing we want to talk about is the weather, because we have some snow, well, quite a lot of snow. We've got a lot of rain, and I think it's going to seriously shake up this race as usual. From your experience, Brian, just how hard is it in Romandie when the weather turns?
It's not nice. I was actually on site commentating a couple of years ago before Eurosport lost it for a couple of years, and I was there with Rob Hatch, and it was a great race. But a couple of days they had to cancel and reroute, and it's not the best, and you can't predict the weather. Like I got out earlier in the Kent Lanes for about 54 miles this morning, and it was really nice conditions. But I believe up in Scotland there was kind of some sleet and things like that, and snow coming down. So you can't predict it, and that's the difficulty. Is and unfortunately for the Tour of Romandie, there's people that have to show, there's people that want to show, and there's people there preparing for the next big thing, i.e. the Giro d'Italia. So with the bad weather, they're going to take some choices, whether they race full gas in that sort of weather. Because I've seen, in that week I was there in a Romandie a couple of years ago, there's a lot of riders climbing off, but they were climbing off because they didn't want to get sick. And that's the big thing. You get sick at this point of the year. If you're preparing for the Giro, you should be pretty fit at the moment. Like we've not seen some of the GC contenders likes of Richie Porte since like the kind of Paris-Nice and things like that. So we're now going to see them. And will they take some risks for Tour of Romandie? I'm not too sure they will.
Talking about the weather, obviously clothing plays a massive part in it. Back in your old NetApp days, you were lucky enough to work with Endura, who are now at Movistar. Just how important is kind of the correct clothing for the big riders?
Look, even going back to my career, I look at how come we could get away with it. You talk to Sean Kelly, and he goes back to some wool jerseys, and how can they get away with it? The technology in clothing now, I think it was definitely on the aerodynamic side of things. Enduro have taken it to the next level. You can see it on the jerseys. You can see the silicone they use, and they've spent a lot of time with Simon Smart at Drive to Zero. So they've spent a lot of time and effort in developing clothing, especially on the aerodynamic side of things. But you're talking about Castelli bringing the GABA jacket in, ASOS matching it with various products and things like that. I still think that Endura, being in Scotland, produces the best rainwear because it rains pretty much every day there. So they've got an advantage of testing facilities. But it's not. I was brought up when it's cold, everybody was putting a lot of layers on. But what we were doing is a simple thing like a black bin bag, putting that between your race jersey and your base layers, and at any time you could pull that off when it get warmer. But riders are so skinny nowadays, and they're preparing for Grand Tours. It's all about keeping warm, and that's why the support of when you look at the riders' rain bags, it's not just a small rain bag. It's full and cram full of everything. It's there, and there's going to be a lot of skinny riders, GC riders there, want to try and keep warm. And I think the technology of clothing through a lot of the brands is pretty much evenly matched. You all have to look at Callas as well. Callas have entered the market now, especially with British cycling. So I think they're getting a lot of feedback, and over the last few years, I think cycling products, especially on the clothing side, has really developed. And I think the riders have got enough choices. It's whether, you can hear horror stories of one of the major teams going to buy another company's rain capes because the product they had wasn't good enough. But I think the times have changed now. I think cycling, clothing-wise, the brands are fairly pretty much even, and I think all the teams will not have to go out and buy other companies' products because I think they've got a good enough one as it is themselves.
Now, we know some riders love these conditions, like Spilak, who comes from Slovenia. You mentioned it there yourself. Riders from Scotland, you would imagine, are fairly used to riding in horrible conditions. Not that there's many in the peloton these days. When you were riding, is it as simple as something you've grown up with? If you're used to those conditions, you're at an advantage over, say, the Southern Europeans? Or is it something you can learn?
Look, I get asked this question all the time, David. You'll be used to this coming from Scotland. I said, yeah, I'm used to it. Do I like it? No, I don't like riding in the rain as much as anybody. But yeah, you can deal with it. You have to deal with it coming. As a pro rider, many years I spent training in Scotland. I remember training in Scotland in the snow and the ice. And now I think I'm a wee bit older now, and I think otherwise because I've got a choice. But I didn't have a choice then. But then I go. The family got a place in Spain, and every day there it's warm, and you can get pretty sick of that as well. The heat and the sun shining every day. But and some people get lazy because in Scotland or training in the UK in the winter, you have to go out there and do it. Probably in warmer countries, you can do it any time of the day. So sometimes it's all about discipline, and if you've got the discipline, you can train anywhere you want, even if it's off bike a little bit. I see some of the riders were doing a little bit of skiing as well. There's gym work, there's more gym work and various other things, core stability stuff coming in, which is slowly come in over the last kind of 20 years. So, yeah, I don't like the bad weather as much as anybody, but I know, and everybody says that the commentators say, as soon as you go on the start line, I know that 50% of the fields are in a negative mindset already. And if I rode a race after the Basque Country in a one-day race, and it was just riders were climbing off because of even I had to change gloves about 3 times because it was just getting really, really cold. And we persevered and almost won the race. But a lot, I say half the peloton were already, getting showers and things like that. That was before team buses, by the way. This was in the back of the car. So you get a choice. You sit in the back of the car, freezing cold, or you continue and try to keep warm outside. So it's choices. But nowadays, yeah, you have to deal with all sorts of extreme weathers, and I think the UCI have got a protocol now that's, and I'm sure Tour of Romandie will have the choice of whether to use some of the mountains if the snow does come in, which is a shame because Switzerland's a beautiful place. The mountains are beautiful. Even when I covered the Tour de Suisse last year on site, it's beautiful, but yeah, it can be cold and extreme temperatures, and the snow just doesn't work with cycling.
Well, fingers crossed the 2 mountain stages go ahead as planned. We begin with a prologue, 5 kilometres, that has about a K uphill, maybe about 3%. What type of rider do you think this suits? Is it the TT specialist? Is it kind of some of these sprinters who can really power it up the 5K prologue?
I think it's short. It's only I'm just looking at my notes now. 4.8 kilometres. It's not got too much elevation. I would think that, especially a Swiss rider, with maybe a big name like Kung would be a rider that would want to do well here, especially with BMC coming from Switzerland. So, and they're not too far away from, obviously Egler, where we start. So I would think that a strong time trial specialist like a Stefan Kung would do well in a course like this. Yeah, and for the rest of them, it's just about kind of damage limitation. I'm not going to say with this final time trial, because that's got a bit of a climb on it. I'm not going to say this is going to deal with seconds. I think most of the GC contenders want to get the first stage, the prologue out the way, tomorrow out the way, and then concentrate on that first, because we really hit it hard in the first stage.
Yeah, Izagiri surprised most people last season. He delivered a fantastic prologue, if memory serves me right. Albacini possibly is a rider that springs to mind who is in good form just now. Swiss rider, very powerful, could potentially go well. We have 2 sprint stages as well. Now, Romandie sprint stages are climbing days, the same as not like any other sprint stage. Not a huge amount of sprinters here though.
No, thinking of one sprinter who's sick at the moment, I think one of the first time trial, if the only time trial that he's won, Mark Cavendish won a prologue in Romandie quite a few years ago. So it's that type of rider. If there's some strong kind of sprinters that have come here, but as you said, there's looking through the start list at the moment, there's very little. I would think that the stage 2 into Bully, I would think that stage. It's an uphill finish. It's about 2% grades at the end, so it's not really a kind of flat sprint. That, to me, is a stage that's really suited to an Albacini. So you know that if you put a race on, you want to look after the locals. It would be nice for them to get a nice win. It's just unfortunate that you've got that first big mountain before, because for Albacini to win the stage and have a chance of taking the jersey, I don't think he's going to be up there with the favourites in the first stage, because I think that climb is going to be too difficult for him. But certainly that's a stage that he can definitely win. Then stage 3, another chance for the sprinters. It's kind of lumpy all day as it is normally in Romandie, but you've got a couple of sprinters. I've noticed that Ricchese is here, and I think that he would be kind of one of the favourites for that kind of flatter sprints. I think he's a bit faster than the likes of Albacini, but then again, Albacini beat him already this year in Spain. So you never know, and there's so many riders here for different reasons. But I think Ricchese, because they've got Youngles, they've got De La Cruz. As we know, last year De La Cruz had to ride for Youngles in the Giro d'Italia. He had to stop at one point and wait for him. But this year De La Cruz is come on leaps and bounds since he's stage win in the Vuelta. It's who they're going to go with, because Youngles in Flesh Wallonne, wow, he looks super strong. But he never got the opportunity to ride Liège. And I think he never rode Liège to concentrate in this race. Can he deliver? Well, he's going to be the kind of unknown. He's already shown his credentials, but De La Cruz will be there with him. So they've got another situation there. But what will Ricchese's job actually be? Will it be looking after these guys throughout the race on the flats and things like that? Will he get, will he have his full sprint left at the end? That's the questions that have to be asked.
And then also the sprint stages come after the mountain stage. You mentioned that, so big gaps on GC. Plenty of riders wanting to get in the breakaway. Not huge sprint teams here, so the question of who chases, it's not nailed on. We get 2 sprints, is it? We could potentially get a breakaway.
Yeah, it's set up that way. It's kind of bookended GC. You get the first 2 days for the GC contenders, and obviously the strong guys, like we said, Stefan Kung for the prologue to take the jersey, and it'd be big for him and BMC. But then the last 2 stages are for the GC, so that we're talking about the 2 middle stages. And like you say, with that mountaintop finish in the second day, there'll be big gaps, and I think a lot of people will just automatically get to that last climb, do their job, and try and lose as much time as possible to think of getting in the group the next day. And if a good enough group goes, I think it will, with no GC contenders, they could potentially go all the way to the. I think there'll be 1 sprint stage, but I think looking at the team of Orica, Simon Yates is there, Roman Kreuziger is there. They've got good options, and I think with Albacini on the form he's got, I think they're probably one of the teams that will control it on that first potential sprint, because they believe that they've got the winner there. The next stage, a flatter sprint, if Orica Scott get their stage win with Albacete, then the second day and the fourth stage might be a definite stage for a breakaway.
And those two mountain stages we've touched on, I'm looking at the percentages of the climbs, not as difficult as we've seen here in the past. Champere's 14.5 kilometres at 4-point-something%. That does include a couple of downhill sections within it. Even the Queen stage, it finishes with a climb of 5.4 kilometres at 6.5%. So both those big mountain stages are not as hard potentially as you would imagine. However, the weather, of course, will make it much harder. What do you think? Do you think a TT rider could? We've mentioned Jungles there already. We've got 24 kilometres a time trial. With these climbs not being as difficult as we've seen before, could a TT rider hang in?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. The last climb on stage 2 is 14.4 kilometres at 4.4 average. And the other major climb in that day, the second cat climb, is 8.9 kilometres, 6% average, as you say. But I think the Queen stage, which they're looking at on stage 4, they're a bit steeper, but the shorter climbs. You know, the first cat climb is 5.9, 8.3 with 11% maximum. And then 7.6 in the second category, 4.46% maximum. But the final climb is not an overly long climb where we finish, and that's a 4-kilometre climb, 7.2%, 12%. So it's steeper climbs. So, like you say, David, it's the climbs are not brutal. They're not. The long ones aren't hard. The shorter ones are a bit steeper. It could suit the likes of Jungles, a few kind of odd names. I think they've maybe looked at the parcours and developed this parcours because they don't want to kind of the big mountain stages, where the GC contender. They want to have probably a bigger group, more riders in contention, and maybe have some surprises.
The other thing we've got to consider are the riders who are going to do the Giro. Romandie finishes on Sunday. Giro starts on the Friday. How deep can you go? I mean, is it a case of trying to really carefully manage your efforts? Would a rider like Zakarin really go full out to win Romandie with the Giro just starting so soon after? Or does that not come into thinking? Is it a case of you go to the race and you try and win?
Obviously, there's World Tour points to think about as well. But Katusha, I've got two riders, Spilak and Zakarin. I think they'll look at it. I think the teams have got one eye on the Giro d'Italia. They'll want to get something from the race. Will they take risks? Like you say, I don't think they will take some risks. I think there's a lot of riders in this race that have to do something to prove. But I don't think Zakarin has to prove anything. I know he crashed out the Giro last year, but I think, like you say, it's what the goal of the team is. And they've got Spilak up there. Zakarin can just do his kind of own thing. It's the same with TJ Van Garderen. He's got a lot to prove. But Richie Porte, he might decide that he pops up on one stage, shows his form, shows his team, and they tend to back maybe TJ Van Garderen. It might be the kind of second string guys, depending on the weather. And depending on, Froome can come here. I think Froome's coming here to win. I think he's coming here to win. I think he has to show. He's been training, he's been doing other things and training hard, and I think he's coming here to win. This is a big opportunity for him to race against Richie Porte and beat him. And that's just that'll play with his mind a little bit as the preparation for the Tour starts.
There's a lot of people been starting to ask questions about Froome because of not his absence, but he's had a kind of not many racing days yet, and a lot of that was at the start of the season in the Sun Tour. For him, the kind of season really starts now, isn't it? Romandie, Dauphiné, Tour. That seems to be the pattern for him, yeah?
This is a big build-up. He'll race like he always does, kind of Romandie. He always seems to like this, but he's just cutting out all the risk. That's all he's doing. He is prone to crash a little bit from time to time, so he's taking out the risks. They've got other, they've got other guys to look at on the general classification, and other people getting opportunities like Hen Alwyn and these riders. So, it's good to have that. It's good to give these riders opportunities instead of having your main GC guy riding all the top races. But I think Froome will want to come back and win this race and show that he is not missing. He has been training hard. But the big block now starts now. I don't think he'll be in top form, but May is a very important time for the Tour de France. That's when a lot of the riders thinking about the Tour de France are putting in huge blocks of training.
Looking at the riders who we think might win, you were permitted a wild card this time, and you've gone for Harlinson Pantano of Trek. Unbelievable, just a fantastic Tour de France, riding for IAM, now at Trek, has a rare chance to be team leader. Looking forward to seeing what he can do.
That's it. You hit the nail on the head. What can he do? I saw a massive change in him in the Tour de Suisse last year when he won that stage, and it was huge for the team. I think that was the start of things. The turnaround for IAM, they didn't have it all their own way. The sponsor was pulling out. I was talking to the sponsor, trying to keep them in. In fact, I was trying to find a sponsor for them to keep them in. I had a meeting with them before the first stage of the Tour de Suisse. So I said, look, you've got a fantastic team. You've done really well, but I just don't think the motivation is there, the belief is there, and thinking that your sponsor's going to be pulling out at the end of the year, it affects a lot of riders. So I think you have to give people the confidence and the opportunity. And wow, Pantano won the final stage, and it just, he went from strength to strength after that. He started to believe. And the trouble with that team, and especially with Pantano, and Matthias Frank is here, is when you've got a Swiss team and they've got a Swiss GC contender, and you have to help that rider, and you're actually better than that rider, that's where it starts to get a little bit difficult. But Pantano, when Matthias Frank, I think, stopped in the Tour de Suisse last year, he got his opportunity, he took it, he showed what he can do, and then he was backed afterwards, which I thought was brilliant by the team management.
Yeah, and he really went to town at Tour de France as well. My wild card, after our discussion about TT distance in this race, I'm going for Jonathan Castroviejo of Movistar. 7th in Tirreno Adriatico. Movistar have a mixed team here. No real kind of standout leader, maybe Amador. But Castroviejo, for me, if he can hang tight on those climbs and not lose too much time, huge TT engine, and will surely, hopefully, get close to the top 10 overall. 1-star riders, you've gone for Uran, Menkes and Van Garderen. Menkes, obviously, you know him well. Very, very talented rider, isn't he?
I think, yeah, super talented, and it hasn't been an easy shift for him. He loved MTN Quebec, and it was with great pain that he left. I think it was purely down to he kind of grew out of the team more than anything. They get promised this, they get promised that, and I think he just got a little bit sick of it. As you know, everybody gets sick of it. It was his family, and if you spend a lot of time with your family, you can fall out and you can get sick of it. So he just wanted a fresh change. And Brent Copeland is South African, and he went to Lamprey. Then all of a sudden, they lost the sponsor, and it was very, very difficult period for him. But he showed well in the Tour de France last year. He hasn't shown all his cards yet. I think he's due a big performance. He seems to be slowly coming back to form. He's just behind the kind of top GC guys. When they start attacking, he's just losing a little bit. I think it was the Basque Country, but he showed well towards the end of the Basque Country. You remember his attack with Woods. Yeah. So he's slowly coming to form, and I think Louis could do with a confidence booster. And I think the team will go there and try and support him. And he can time trial well, and he can go over the mountains, and he doesn't mind the bad weather. What
about this style that he's got? And we see quite a few of the young climbers. Hugh Carthy does it. Both Yates do it. This back marking thing of not really liking the the elbows and the pushing at the front of the group. They just hang at the back and then just gradually pick off and pick off and pick off. What do you think about that as a tactic?
I'm not too sure. When you turn the clock back to Carlos Astra would do that. He would start a climb, and he probably, out of the GC contenders, he would lose time in the first few. He couldn't go with the big accelerations at the bottom of the climb, and I think some of these riders can't do that. They have to ride themselves in and slowly start to pick them off. But I think it's down to the way other teams ride. There's a lot of trains, a lot of riders riding at the front and doing this train. So why get involved? Why? And I think with the more of a level playing field, there's a lot of riders afraid a little bit. They don't know themselves, afraid of attacking. And that's where the World Tour parts come in as well. I don't like that system where you have to preserve what you've got rather than try and win the race. I like to see people trying to win races and attacking racing, not riding conservatively. But you know that if Froome's riding, he'll have his domestics in front of him, and it'll just be setting a tempo. So it'll be a tempo that's hard enough that it's going to be very difficult to attack. So where you have to pick your moments and know the climbs, and I'm not too sure that any of these riders will know the exact parcours. So they'll not know what the climbs are. They'll have scouts. They'll have maybe videos. The Swannies will be up it and they'll give them information. But where do you actually attack the likes of Chris Froome and expose the weaknesses in some of the teams? So I just think it's these young riders. A lot of it is just down to maybe a bit of confidence, and I don't think, and that's one of the big things when I came into MTN Quebec is I believed in them straight away, and I gave them the confidence to go and do it. If you failed, I wasn't going to have a go. But there's a lot of teams out there that if you do fail, then you get wrapped in the knuckles.
One rider who seems to lack confidence these days is TJ Van Garderen. Obviously, he was a big hope. He was the guy that was going to take over from Cadell. It didn't work for him. They go and sign Richie Porte. They seem to be backing him all the way now. How would that make somebody like Van Garderen feel?
Not very good, but I done a blog for an American online magazine, and I think when Van Garderen, I think he got 5th overall in the Tour de France. That's the best he'll ever get. I can't see him getting any better. And although they tried and they backed, they were always backing the wrong horse in my eyes. And it's very difficult. How do you get a GC contender? If you've not got a lot of money, how do you get a GC contender? It's about talent spotting. And I thought they got the best out of TJ, but he wasn't going to get any better. So I think Richie Porte is going to win the Tour de France. I don't think he will. I think he's got at least one bad day in him. And he's a bit similar to Geraint Thomas. If that bad day comes in a mountain stage, then he'll lose time. And Richie Porte's that sort of rider as well. Talented bike rider, rides. You wind him up, put him on the front. He rides over anything. Same with Geraint. But sometimes these guys have a bad day, and as a GC contender, you can't have a bad day. I think they're all fighting for second in the Tour de France at the moment with Chris Froome. He seems to be just doing his own thing and letting everybody kind of race away. But I think Chris will come here and he'll want to do something. In the Spanish races, he showed well and then kind of disappeared. I just don't think he wants to take any risks. But it's a difficult one when we're looking at Ben Swift as well. He can sprint well. And he's in that team. Ulysse is starting to show well, coming to form. You saw him in Bastogne-Liège. So Albacini's not going to have it all his own way in that kind of uphill finish. And Ulysse can hold his own. He's maybe not the best time trialist, but over the rest of the race, you can do pretty well. But I think it's a really open field. It's going to be a really open race. And for the first time I think, ever in a World Tour race, Team Dimension Data are fielding an all-African team. So hats off to them for doing it. I know that Katusha done it a few years ago in the Tour de France, and it didn't work. But I think they've got opportunities in there. We've even not mentioned Kudus. Kudus can ride well in this race, and I think the Team Dimension Data feel a little bit deflated at the moment. Things aren't going their own way. Brilliant ride by Nathan Haas and Amstel Gold, but it just needs a couple of individual performances. A stage win for Team Dimension Data after losing Steve Cummings and Mark Cavendish through injury and illness. I think a win by the likes of Kudus could just turn the corner for them.
1-star riders, I'm going Orica. Roman Kreuziger really impressed me on Sunday in Liège. I thought his.
But I'll ask the question, David. Is he a GC contender, or is he a super domestic type of rider, which I've just already explained about Geraint and Richie Porte? He's a sort of rider that gives everything for everybody else, but put him on the stands, and I don't think he has delivered over the years.
No, I think you're probably right. I think his results in one-day races have probably been better than his performances in stage races. However, the form there was really good. I've also got Simon Yates. I'm not sure when he found out that he wouldn't be doing the Giro, but if his preparations were for the Giro, then he should have good legs just now. And I've thrown Zakir in at 1-star because I'm just not 100% sure what role he'll play with Katusha. 2-star riders, you've got Zakharin, you've got Roglic, you've got Spilak. Very similar to my own, except I've got Jungels in there with Spilak and Roglic. Roglic, potentially the rider of the season so far in terms of coming from there and then going to there. He really has improved an awful lot this season in stage races.
You don't have to explain Roglic to me. I spotted him about 3 years ago, and I was trying to sign him for Team Dimension Data. In the first year, I had him down in my list, and I said to the team owner, "We need to sign this rider." And I was phoning him through Viber, and I know his situation. He was riding for Adri Mobile, and he had a clause in his contract we could buy him out his contract, and the team were happy for them to do that. And the team owner of Team Dimension Data just said to me, I can't buy another rider that I don't know, I've never heard of before, and is not African. He would rather take an African, and I know it's an African team, but this guy, I've followed him, I've been talking to him for over a year now. When he finished, I think, second in Azerbaijan, and the way he was riding, because a lot of the things I do is, no matter what level the race is, I'm a cycling fan and I watch the races, wherever it's on the internet and things like that. I watch Azerbaijan and Croatia and things like that, these type of races where you see these guys shine. And a couple of people had already tipped me off about them, but I'd said to them, look, I've already got my eye on them, and tried to sign him. And unfortunately, I had to make the call, and he said to me, okay, then I'm off to Amsterdam to meet with Lotto NL. And I knew he was going to sign with them, and he's extended the contract. He's a super guy, really talented athlete, if I can say athlete, because he was a ski jumper before, and he was pretty much riding one man team for Adri Mobile because the team couldn't help him, and he was just absolutely amazing. So it's really no surprise that what he has learned in his first year pro, you're now seeing the dividends now, because he was so raw. Because I remember somebody phoning me up that I tipped him off before the Giro last year, and one of the World Tour managers had said, have a look at Roglic, and he phoned me up in the day of the time trial and says, Roglic is winning the time trial. And I said, yeah, I'll probably win it. And he did. And they were like, how do you know these guys? And I said, well, it's a lot of research and looking and spotting talent. Like, I believe one of the next best American, and I said it probably exactly 1 year ago at this time, is Nelson Paulus. He's the next best thing that's coming out of America. Absolutely amazing. I tried to get David Dela Cruz even into Dimension Data, but that never happened. So I don't know what it is. It's something I can see talent in some riders.
And they're still going to try and work on his positioning. I know that on the climbs that they're still a wee bit concerned, Roglic, because he doesn't have the experience of touching it. He was at Adria Mobile and then straight away stepped up to Jumbo, so that kind of fighting for position is not great. But
he's a new rider. When you do a sport and then move over, you're like David De La Cruz started late. The story about David, I know David De La Cruz because I look after him, right? And I've helped him get the contract with Quick Step 3 years ago, and he was up against some other good riders when I was talking to Patrick Lefevre. But the thing is, he got offered a contract with NetApp and Jura, an extension for his contract, but it wasn't a great contract. And he said to me, "Can you help me?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I can help." So I started talking to some teams. So they're putting pressure on him to sign before the Tour de France. And he went to the Tour de France and crashed out and broke his collarbone. And he was in tears, and I phoned him at the hospital. He thought, this is his chance, gone. He won't stay in the pro peloton. He'd said no to NetApp and Jura. And it was just going south. And I said, if it's the last thing I'll do, I'll keep you as a pro bike rider. Trust me, David. And I made the phone call, and I think it was the Tour of Utah, and I phoned him up, and it says, Quick Step, and he was over the moon. And the first thing when I done Turkey, I saw Patrick. I said, "How's David?" And he said, "You never told me he can't go down hills. He can go up hills, but he can't go down hills." I said, "I know a little bit about that because at NetApp they put him on a smaller bike to try and help him, because in a bigger bike when you go downhill, it's just your centre of gravity. So they tried him on a smaller bike, so his centre of gravity would be good." So then last year I heard that a few of the, like Tom Bonin and things like that, were trying to help him, because they were saying to him, "David, when you go down a hill, you're losing time." And so I think his confidence has grown because he came into the sport late. Roglic came into the sport late. So when you get thrown into the deep end and these big races, it's all about learning. And when he was descending into San Sebastian, I was thinking, wow, this rider is descending. And when you think 2 years ago, he would lose probably, 30 seconds in a descent like that. So yeah, this just because of their age, these riders learn quickly, but thrown in at deep end like Roglic, coming from smaller teams and things like that, is always going to be difficult for them.
And his time trial in Basque Country was just awesome. I mean, he put so much time. He beat Contador, Valverde, Izagirre. I mean, he's a serious talent. And I know the plan is yellow jersey Tour de France. That's what the goal is with the team.
Yeah. When he said to, he's one of the riders, right? And he said to me before he signed, Brad, I said, what's your probably your best attributes? Because I can see him as a strong rider. What's your best attributes? And he said to me, "Brian, I don't know. I'm untested. I don't know what I'm going to be like." And so he's just going out there, loving racing, just going full gas. And like you say, in the Basque Country, I can't remember a time trial, covering a time trial for Eurosport where I've actually enjoyed it, because it was when you saw Michael Matthews put it down, and then I'd kind of said to Captain Kirby I was walking with, just watch David De La Cruz, and he was saying, I've never heard of him, no. Watch David De La Cruz, because I know that David wasn't happy a couple of times, because in the Giro last year he never had a following car. And that plays with a rider's mind sometimes, that the team don't believe in him. And you saw him in the Paris-Nice this year, but he finished in a good time trial. So every time one of these GC contenders came through and they were better in the time and better in the time, I thought that was an unbelievable time trial to commentate on and watch.
3-star riders, we both have the same: Froome, Port, and Izagiri.
That's not great minds, is it?
I think it's the obvious shout. Izagiri, Froome and Port, I mean, they speak for themselves. Izagiri, very, very strong, 1 week racer. The length of the time trial is good for him. He doesn't mind the bad weather. He's from the Basque Country. He's quite often seen out training in the rain. He's had a very strong week at Ardennes. He looks a real deal.
And I think they've not had a lot of success, Barry and Merida, and you're okay with their sprinter, and now with Croatia. But World Tour points, I think they could do with a win here. But I just think that this is I think it's going to be a psychological battle between Froome and Port.
A big marker, you would say. Two great friends, but I don't know if Port's going to do Dauphiné. I haven't read that yet, but obviously Froome will want to put a marker down before the Tour.
Yeah, we're good friends. They're still in contact. They still train together. There's, obviously not at the training camps, but where they live. But I think under team management, they want Chris Froome, because he's taken so much time away. They want Chris Froome to put confidence in the rest of the team and deliver a result for them. Keep the spirit in the team high, because it was lacking a little bit at the start of the year, team spirit. And then Kwiatkowski came up with Milan San Remo and Strade Bianche, and then the Alps with the Geraint. So I think keep the momentum going. I think there'll be a bit of pressure on for Froome to deliver, but also from BMC. BMC will want to take a scalp before the Tour de France from Richie Porte and Chris Froome.
So who's your pick? Who do you think is going to be the winner?
Chris Froome.
See, normally I wouldn't pick the same person, but I have to agree with you. Yeah. For all the reasons you said, Froome is the best rider in the world. He's got the biggest results. I think this is going to be a big race for him. And I think that he's just a wee bit better than Port.
Well, if you think it and I think it, I'm pretty sure other people think it, which will mean that other teams have to take a little bit of risk. And there's a couple of teams that we've mentioned already have probably kind of two GC contenders like Zakarin and Spilak, so they can afford to maybe play another cards. So you just have to see what happens. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be some great racing like it normally is in Romandie.
Brilliant. And you're commentating on it for Eurosport, Brian, yeah?
Yeah, I've got a busy period coming up, just back from obviously Croatia doing that. I've got Romandie coming up. Then I'm working with Eurosport, which something will be announced tomorrow and on the directly from Eurosport, but I'll be working with Eurosport throughout the whole Giro d'Italia. Then I'm back for a week. Then I'm heading out to the Tour de Suisse, probably the national championships and possibly the Tour de France. So it's kind of big periods, and my family might not see a lot of me over the next few months.
Well, Brian, thank you very much for coming on tonight. Look forward to hearing lots of your voice over the coming weeks.
That's because you can understand it and most can't.
Well, Brian, thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you. Cheers.